In this video, we are going to learn about two-way frequency tables. Before we begin to look at the math, we need to look at some vocabulary. The first set of vocabulary words are listed on this slide, marginal frequencies and joint frequencies. And you guys can read the definitions on the screen here. I like to remember marginal frequencies as being the ones in the margin, just like in the book. So they are along the edges. So right here and right here. So for this particular table, our marginal frequencies are 13, 40, 40, as well as 45 and 48. Notice this total in the corner here. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We also have relative frequency vocabulary words here. We have joint relative frequency, marginal relative frequency, and conditional relative frequency. Notice this table, it looks a lot different than the table in the previous slide. This table all has numbers expressed as decimals because these are probabilities of things happening. So for example, the probability of a male liking technology or choosing technology for an elective is 0.075. We will spend most of this lesson learning how to calculate these values, but again, notice the marginal values appear in the edges just like the margins of a book. Please make sure before we actually begin to look at the numbers that you read the entire page 29 in your packet because there is a lot more explained in there. I just wanted to take a moment in this video to point out the key vocabulary words. Now that we understand how this vocabulary, we can move on to our next skill. And that next skill is to create a two-way frequency table from two sets of data. So we have an example here, and I can let you guys read that. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do so. The one thing I want to point out is that it reminds us here to not forget about the totals for each category. Not only does our two-way frequency table need to include the joint frequencies, we need to have the marginal frequencies and totals as well. So when we read through this problem, there's going to be two different categories of data. The first thing that I notice is some sort of a data related to population. In this case, we're talking about people that live in single-family homes and multifamily homes. I'm going to put those categories along the side here, single-family followed by multifamily, and last but not least, we need to make sure that we have the total listed as a category along the side. When I continue reading, I notice that this particular problem talks about, so I refer to this highlighted blue part as choices. Each problem that we have is going to talk about population and choices. And in this particular problem, it is choices about whether or not you like yogurt. So I went ahead and put those choices up at the top of my two-way frequency table, liking yogurt, disliking yogurt, and again, not forgetting the total. I went ahead and put in my lines and I continued to read in the word problem. I noticed that 89 single-family home people like yogurt and 26 dislike it. For multifamily, we have 34 liking yogurt and 81 disliking yogurt. That came directly from the word problem. Now, in order to get the totals, we need to add. Adding across, we get the 115 and the 115. Adding down, we get the 123 and the 107. And last but not least, we need that number in the corner, and that number is 230. You know you made your two-way frequency table correctly when the vertical or the column total matches the row total. So now that we know how to make a two-way frequency table, we can go ahead and begin to interpret two-way frequency tables. So we have a new problem here talking about gender of students. You can find that along the side here. Again, that's our population. And choice along the top, being in favor or against purchasing a water bottle system like we have here at Grays Lake Central. So the first three questions here, A, B, and C, are all vocabulary related. If you want to go ahead and pause the video now and test your vocabulary knowledge from earlier in the video, you can. Otherwise, you can go ahead and continue to play the video and see what these answers are. So our joint frequency values are found in the middle of the table. 75, 55, 60, and 50. Marginal frequency values for gender, we're going to want to find gender and go straight across. So we have 130 and 110. Marginal frequency values for choices, again, find choices, go straight across. So we have 135 and 105 there. Now we have to look at some problems dealing with probability. And as a reminder, probability is number of outcomes in favor of the problem divided by the number of total possible outcomes. So problem D asks us to find the probability that a student in the survey is male. So the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out how many male students there are and divide it by the total. In this particular case, it's 110 divided by 240. Type that into your calculator to get a decimal rounded to 2 decimal places of 0.46. Problem E, find the probability that a student is in favor of the system given that they are a male student. Now this word given is important. This word given tells us that we're not looking at the overall total, but the total number of male students. In this case, we have a total of 110 male students. 60 of those male students are in favor of the system. Divide this out, you get 0.54 when you round properly. Continuing on, problem F, find the probability that a student is male and is in favor of the system. We do not have the word given, so we're going to use that 240 for our total. We have 60 students that are male and in favor of the system. Dividing that out, you get 0.25. Problem G, find the probability that a student is female given she is against adding the system. So we have that word given again, and it's pointing to adding the system. So we have a new total. 105 students are against adding the system. 55 of them are female. Divide that out to get the 0.52. Go ahead and pause the video and try H and J. And when you are ready, go ahead and hit play to see if you were correct. So go ahead and hit pause right now. Now let's see how you did. Hopefully for problem H, you had the fraction 135 over 240, which becomes 0.56 in your calculator. And for problem J, we had another given. So our total should be female only. So in this case, we're looking at a total of 130. 55 of those students were against adding the system. Simplifying it down, you get a decimal or a probability of 0.42. Hopefully now you feel comfortable with two-way frequency tables. Please make sure that before class tomorrow, you complete the homework on pages 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36.